So Aquarius, your August 2025 forecast suggests there's going to be some very earnest conversations this month. But the key in all conversations is working on our listening skills. We live in a world which is uber competitive but also hugely polarized. So many people seem to be entrenched in very different opinions and having a battle of wills about that. Now, your gift this month could be that you can be the intermediary, the person who works between two different factions to try to get a better dialogue going. But if you are in a relationship yourself, of any kind, it doesn't have to be a romantic one, which isn't quite working for you, the full moon in your sign on the 9th is certainly going to emphasize your dissatisfaction, not least because Mercury is retrograde through to the 11th. But Mercury starts this month in a very tight conjunction with the Sun. If you recall, as July came to a close, they were totally unified in what's known as a cazimi. Now, because it's an inferior conjunction, because of the retrograde, we might think, ooh, Mercury retrograde in the 7th house, there's bound to be crosswise around a relationship. Well, I have to agree, there's certainly the potential, and that's where Mercury, being the ruler of the second decan of your sign, gives you an advantage. Now, some astrologers, and I agree with this, feel that Mercury is accidentally exalted in Aquarius because of Aquarius people's natural penchant for chatting, sharing information, and also being open to developing trends, which comes from Uranus. Saturn, the other ruler, much more to do with the traditional side of the sign of Aquarius. But that ability to be very open-minded and non-judgmental, which is uniquely Aquarius, I feel, certainly can help you if there are some of those inevitable little bits of tension that can come with Mercury retrogrades. But I actually feel it's your other ruler, Saturn, which is going to perhaps be a bit more of a mischief maker at the start of this month. He's still in an alliance with Neptune, itself hugely complex, but they're both squaring off to the relator, Venus, at the start of this month. It would be easy to have a conversation and focus on what's not quite working around any situation, whether it's with a colleague, someone not performing quite as accurately or as carefully. That kind of stuff could go on, but that's where your talent for not being judgmental, just hearing what people say, being even-handed, can be so helpful to you. But Mars, the planet of desire, and if we're honest, impatience, has been in a part of your chart for the 5 weeks before August, which is very much to do with a deeper, more passionate impulse. Sometimes we're not always conscious of what we're being drawn or motivated towards. That's Mars's rulership of Scorpio more than Aries. Whether it's been someone you've been strongly drawn to romantically, or whether it's been improving your financial situation, Mars is coming into an exact opposition with Saturn and Neptune on or from the 6th, because it moves into your sister air sign of Libra. Now for you personally, this can be fantastic. The following 6 weeks can give you a huge desire to break out, be more adventurous, perhaps even be a bit more physically active, travel somewhere. But because Mars is very much about that excitement and impulse, some things might happen quite quickly. But if you do find yourself having a discussion with someone who doesn't have your talent for hearing either side of the story, who does tend to be very entrenched, who can be very inflexible, you could find around about the 5th, 6th or 7th of this month that you end up having, despite your best intentions, quite a standoff with someone. But it may be someone that you feel is trying to force their ideas upon you. But it's also important to understand that other people might see you in that way too. So there are some tender tensions at the start of this month. Mercury retrogrades, we know, can be those misunderstandings. So care is needed. But I feel collectively for Aquarius people, It is about relationships at the start of this month, but it's not about bending to other people's world to the point that you give away your identity. And that's really what Mars thrusting into your ninth house does as it inches forwards and forges one of the most stunning alliances of the whole year. It's linking to Pluto and Uranus back to Mars. So Pluto in Aquarius, Uranus newly arrived in Gemini, Mars newly arrived in Libra, grand air trine. Let's think about the archetypes. Pluto in your sign is pushing you to manifest your individuality. Uranus in Gemini, since the 7th of July, is pushing you to have more confidence to embrace that more futuristic and rebellious side of your nature and not be quite so bound up in the conforming energies of Saturn. I think most Aquarius people, but particularly early Aquarius people, can feel a bit conflicted between being a bit zany and progressive and also sticking with what they know. But this could be a real paradigm breaker. You could cut through in a really exciting way. And then with the full moon, if there is a situation where you feel, however much you show that decency, humanity, understanding that people have different viewpoints, if something's not working around any kind of connection, be it with a friend, a business contact, maybe a relative, could be even a partner, I feel that you have to express what you need, despite the Sun and Mercury in the early part of the month, and Venus the relator, asking you in a way to be very conscious of how it is for someone else. And once Mercury goes direct on the 11th, and then in tandem with that glorious ground air trine, Venus moves forwards and links in a potentially very fortunate way to Jupiter. So we have the two planets in traditional astrology of fortune, Venus the lesser, Jupiter the greater, cresting together by the 12th in a lovely way. Now, for you, they're in the 6th house, which can be about work, can be about where we can purify things. It's pretty difficult with Venus and Jupiter to be too conscientious about our diet, to be honest. The 6th house can be about those kind of strands. But you could, for example, go out with someone you work with and have a very sociable time. Or you could connect to someone completely spontaneously in the most unexpected situation. You know, it may be that you just sat in a coffee bar and then someone just turns. There's a moment where some kind of electric connection that could have some serendipity attached to it is possible. And this could be also the case if you travel somewhere or you do something completely different from your normal routines, because Uranus in the 5th house, after all the turbulence of the last 7 years, I mean, obviously it is just for 5 months through to the 7th of November, but it is a chance to be much freer. And, you know, Mars being in Libra is about relating, but for you it's relating with a sense of adventure. And then as we get to the 22nd, the Sun does dive deep. It moves into the psychological sector of deep transformations. But if you've tried everything to hear someone out, to lean into their situation, and they're still not hearing where you're coming from, so it's not a democratic give and take, because the Sun squares with Uranus, particularly through the new moon of the 23rd, that may be your opportunity to actually break completely free. Because I think for us Aquarius people, as much as we can have lots of different people, lots of different types of people we connect to, there are certain principles that do define deeper and closer relationships. And if you feel that someone is really not going to ever be conscious of your right to see things as you do, you may feel it is better if you call it a day. However, Venus moves on the 25th into the most beautiful part of its entire journey for you, the 7th house, into Leo. So if there was going to be a separation, well, you can still be friends. Or if you don't want to be friends, you can at least be respectful or understanding if there is a bit of emotion that gets evoked, or you can express your need for extra space in a diplomatic way, or you could connect to someone at the end of this month, which really is a new connection that's developing in a way that is very surprising to you, but actually can be hugely life-changing. So it's quite the month, Aquarius, to be honest. And if you pitch in and give it the best of you, the higher vibration of your sign, and people don't reach a reasonable level within your expectations, at least you'll know you've tried everything you can. But I think it can also be an opportunity to break free or break through your own inhibitions in some ways about how you can set your posture to the world at large, because that link between Pluto, Uranus and Mars is a belter. With year 2025 absolutely racing by, you can order your year 2026 natal forecast now, and I'll give you the rest of this year free, but also 30% off and your life roadmap report, the most important document any of us can ever read, helping to give us searing insights into the life patterns that have played out so far, but a much more intimate understanding of how to work with those energies future forwards. Please see the link below for more.